Welcome to the Learn to RV podcast, where road life meets real life.
All right, welcome to the Learn to RV the podcast. So today we look a little bit different. Jennifer and Tasha have changed. I've got Frank and Matt here with me today because we're going to be talking about trip planning and route planning. And we were all talking the other day. I'm like, who does the route planning in your marriage? And it's us three. Yeah. And so we thought we were the best ones to come to this topic and discuss it today, because I don't think any of us believe in pink and blue, right, Frank?
No.
And anybody can do anything, whatever they're comfortable with.
That's right.
So here we are, and we're going to discuss it. So first up, let's just kind of go down the row and, maybe talk about some of the apps that we use to help our planning. Frank, I'm going to let you go first.
So currently I'm using the RV Life Pro app. It's and then as a backup on that, I use Google Maps. And the reason why I use both is because, at least in my experience with the RV Life Pro, if you have something go awry, whether there's traffic backed up or something like that, it doesn't give you the live feed. Right. So it's something why I use Google as well.
Okay. So you run both apps simultaneously?
Simultaneously. So I have the big screen is going to be the RV Life Pro, and then the little miniature pop up is what Google, and I have to mute one or they argue. As my wife says, I have both of them are established and set up for women's voices, and then she also likes to chime in. So I have three women yell at me at the same time.
That's awesome. That's great. What do you use, Matt?
I use the same, but I use RV Life mainly to just plan the trip.
Yeah.
And I've just recently started using it during the drive. Especially like going some of the places like Kentucky and things like that. I was testing it out to see if it would give me like weird routes, and it went pretty smooth. In Massachusetts, we did come across like one or two bridges that we could go under, but you put the feature on RV Life of trying to avoid low clearances, and we were fine for that. But I know that it wasn't ever something that was dinged on there. So if people have like higher regs or something like that, definitely also like have like one of those trucker roadmap type books.
Yeah.
Those are helpful a lot too. So
for sure. We have a trucker map. And I always use that to kind of double check things as I'm making plans. But I also use RV Life. So unfortunately, you guys are getting the RV Life show today.
Yes.
But it's a great app, and it's great for planning. In the past years, I don't know about you guys. Frank, you've been on the road 13 years, but we've used Garmin previously, and it was okay. But it took us down some pretty shady roads a few times.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we got our fifth wheel, I was like, okay, I need something a little bit better. And that's when we switched over to RV Life. But have you used any other apps over the course of your travels or programs?
I've tried Apple Maps a couple times. I'm not a fan of that. Google's mostly what I've been using for the most part. But it's the problem with Google, like depending on like if I'm in the northern Houston region of Texas, some of their roads and the back regions between like that and Livingston, like if they're an escapees member, some of those roads you've got to really watch your turns because there's no turn radius if you have a trailer connected to you.
Right.
Forget a log truck or anything. It's like if you've ever seen some of those video games that are out there where you see the truck trying to make a turn, it's like banging everything on its path because the wheels don't track right. We got stuck like that about a year and a half ago, where I was frustrated at the time with the RV Life app. I was like, I'm not using it. Jennifer's like, okay. And at this time, we still had our chase vehicle, so Jennifer's not in the car with me. My navigator at the time was my one of my sons, and he's the only one who can handle okay, I need this now, right now. No, I need it now before I lose my mind.
Yeah.
So he's like, we stop and I pull over, put the hazards on, and I'm looking at the intersection. He goes, you're not making that. And I said, I understand that. And he goes, how are you going to fix this? He goes, you're not backing up 3 miles and you're not going to make that turn. I said, no, I can make the turn. I just have to back up and get in the oncoming traffic lane and then make the turn. I said, but first I'm going to establish the map of where I need to go from here with RV Life Pro to get to where we're going with, because we were going between the Thousand Trails Conroe and the it's the Escape East Park, so the Rainbow Park there, and we got into some of the weeds in there per se, and we had stopped over to the side of the road. I'm setting the map up, and Jennifer's calling to check on us, and you can hear she's like, "Is everything okay? Is anything wrong? Is anything mechanical?" She's like, "No." I said, "I have to reroute real quick," and you could hear the tone of, "I told you so." And I was like, "Please, not right now. Don't say it." I said, "We're gonna fix this," and then by not setting it up before then, I ended up having to go an extra 9 miles out of my way because that's the closest turn that was safe for me to turn in those situations. And for that aspect, I think RV Life Pro is been a lifesaver.
Yeah, for sure. Have you experienced any other apps or programs or anything? Or?
Early on, I tried one. I think it was called Dirt, because that was another trucker app.
Yeah.
But I don't think I used it on more than one trip. It's just really before we even got full time. We were just going on short trips out right before we got on the road full time.
So let's rewind a little bit. Like, how do you guys kind of decide where to go? And then also, like, let's say you have your point A and your point B figured out, but there's 10 ways to get there. How do you determine which route is the best route to take? Sometimes RV Life can even give us 2 or 3 different routes. Like, how do you dive deeper and navigate like which one is the best one? I'll start with you, Matt.
Well, so with RV Life, I like the features of like because we have open roads, and so I try to do point A to point B and then see if there's a Love's or TA, or truck stops, even if they're not covered by open roads, just to know that it's going to be a gas station I can pull into.
Right.
Because I've been in situations in like West Virginia or something like that, or some of those places out in the middle of nowhere where you could barely fit into the gas station, but there's probably something not down the road. And so that has been helpful. So usually I've got my trip set to like, 10 stops down the road, campsites. So then I just look in between there for, in an hour and a half, I'm filling up a truck here, and the next hour and a half I'm filling up down there, and I try to plan it that way. And then if I'm using Google for that day, then I just put in the LUBs for, my trip as I have on RV Life, and then I just use Google
to navigate.
Yeah.
Yep. What about you, Frank?
So I don't try to pre-plan all our gas stops, only because of the number of passengers and animals that we're traveling with. One stop will throw everything off, and then everybody will still expect us to make all those additional stops. I like to fly by the seat of my pants, but I will still at least pick the route, depending on where we're going, and whoever's in the navigation seat. I kind of give them an idea of, hey, and I'll keep an eye on what our fuel economy is and how many miles apparent we have left. I do like to keep a spare 5-gallon bucket of diesel on the truck at all times, especially when we're hauling between locations, because I like to thread that needle to where it says you have less than 10 miles and you have no miles left. And I've done that probably 2 or 3 times to where I know what's going on. My navigator knows what's going on. They're thinking about strangling me because they don't want to walk. But some of the things like Matt was referencing, depending on where you're in the country, we try and hit as many interstates as possible, depending on where you're traveling from. Only because that's where the bigger truck stops are for us to fit into, and they'll have RV lanes as an option as well. Because I've got a 42-foot fifth wheel. I don't like to use the RV lanes because sometimes that's on the front side where all the smaller cars are driving and zipping around. I do like to throw caution to the wind. If anybody's ever been to a Buc-ee's, it is a great place to go get fuel for your RV. I highly recommend going there on 4th of July because I've done that. And people are like, "You did what?" I was like, "I just wanted the experience to say I can chalk that one off and never do it again."
I've heard some Buc-ee's are hard to get into with your RV, and others, are better. So,
Yes.
so maybe you went to one of those more difficult ones. And I'm a little bit different than these two. So I drive a gas truck, which means I definitely have to plan out my gas stops. Otherwise, I may not fit. Like, they're looking for Loves, and I'm avoiding Loves at all costs because there ain't no way that I am getting my 42-foot fifth wheel into the gas side of a Love station. So a lot of times what I'm doing, we like to stick to highways. That's a big one for us too. But I actually look for the small mom and pop gas stations because I'm looking for those stations that I can drive in one way and drive out the other way without having to turn around or, battle traffic too much, easy in and out. And I will do it using Google Street View. Once I find a gas station, I'll go look at it with Google Street View so I can actually see it from the perspective of the driver. And I can go, oh yeah, I can make that, or no, I can't. And then also check the height of because the small mom and pop shops, they're not always tall enough for me. So
I've seen a lot of videos of catastrophes.
Yeah, but in those you can usually see the sign, and so I can verify that it's tall enough for me and things like that. And then I usually have to then have 3 gas stations picked out because maybe the first one's not far enough, maybe the second one's too far, and then so I've got to have lots of options, or I get to one like one time last year. Okay, in the mountains. Let's talk about that a second. By the way, in the mountains, you're going to go through gas faster.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And it's not something you think about. You're so used to getting couple hours of gas. And then all of a sudden you're in the mountain and it's like, I'm in 45 minutes in and I need gas. What the heck?
Yes.
So plan for that. So we were in one of those situations. We were driving through Wyoming in the mountains, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to need gas. Oh, there's a big truck stop coming up. We'll be able to do it. Well, we pull in. And I'm looking and I'm like, there's no way. We ended up driving around to the trucks, disconnecting the fifth wheel, and then taking the truck to get gas because
I was going to ask if you've ever done
Yes.
that. I've had to do that. I would say I was going to do that as an option, but because I carry the little
gas can,
the fuel can, I was like, so that was one of the trips where I was like, you know what? I used it the previous trip and didn't prep correctly. And it was one of those, we're running now to the fumes and the under 10 miles, and then all of a sudden it says there's no miles, and the needle was already so far in the red. I literally just pulled over into the side. The first gas station that came across that had diesel, and I was like, I'm not going to fit. So I was like, I shut the truck off, put in park, and I was like, maybe we should disconnect. And I was like, well, I don't know if I have enough diesel to start it back up again. And if I'll make it over there. So I was like, I'm just going to get 5 gallons in here. And then I ended up putting that in there. So that's one of the crazy things. And one of the things I can tell you from experience, especially with the newer cars or the newer vehicles, they have the valves in there for, emissions. And I know, at least in mine, I've got a Ram. I have this one half-inch extension it's like 20 inches long that I use it to put down into the fuel tank, so that it opens both valves. So when I start putting the fuel in there, it doesn't pour on the side of on the road.
Oh yeah.
And that was the first time I learned about that. Was who was I saying? But yeah,
I bet.
So so when it comes to off beaten path travels, you're talking about having to verify the ability to get gasoline. We have the problem with trying to find diesel if we're not near truck stops. So if we're going through, the back roads of Texas or some other areas, those are critical things. Even if it's a trucker route, it doesn't mean that there's a trucker stop.
That's right. Well, and trucks can go. How far can they go without needing diesel? They can go a long ways.
Oh yeah.
So it's a lot different for us RVers, but definitely something you have to plan. Well, unless you're Frank, you fly by the seat of your pants. But smart ones over here, we plan our gas stops. So let's talk about have you ever ended up in a situation that you kind of were like, oh my gosh, what did my GPS do to me? Or,
Yes.
and it doesn't even have to be GPS related, but let's share some fun stories about tough situations we have gotten ourselves into with our RVs and our travel days. You want to go first, Frank?
Sure. So my favorite one was just this past summer. We were going from Vernal, Utah up to Rock Springs, Wyoming. And there's pretty much one route and it goes through the mountains. And we pulled up the RV route through RV Life and I was like, okay. And it's like, this is a clear route and we're get out on the road and there's trucks there. So I was like, well, if the trucks are making it, we can make it. And we started driving the route and it is hugging the cliffside and there is no guardrail. And I'm like, this is exciting. And, at this point, Jennifer's with us, with me in the truck and she's freaking out. And I'm like, okay. So we're climbing and our turbo starts giving us issues. So I now have no extra oomph to climb. So I'm climbing, but I'm going off of just air. So we're going maybe 5-10 miles an hour. It's a 45. I got double fuel truck tankers behind me. Literally, I can't see their truck anymore. They're that close to the fifth wheel.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay. So I was trying to be courteous. And there's no sign saying what the percentage is. And I've climbed a lot of steep hills. It felt like it was higher than 8, but there was no sign to verify it. If I was to guess it, I would probably say it was either a 9 or 10% grade. So it's steep. And I'm like, okay, so I see an open space. There's a guardrail and it's gravel. And Jennifer looks at me and goes, no. I'm like, I have to. No. So I pull over and she goes, okay, well, the truckers, there's like now 15 vehicles, like, and 10 of them are all double trailer fuel trucks. And they're all honking their horn, thanking me that I pulled to the side. And I was like,
is that
okay.
what they were doing?
Yes. They were smiling. They weren't giving me any ill gestures. They were happy that I pulled over and got out of the way. So I was like, okay, this is all well and good. And this is when I realized how steep the hill was. So I'm now in gravel. I'm on the side of the road. And I put it back into gear. And I hit the accelerator. And it didn't move. And I was like, I should have stayed moving.
Yeah.
So Jennifer's like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. I got this. Hold on a second. So I thought about how to get out of that situation. The first thing I did was basically put it back in park, let it roll just a little bit back, put it back into drive, and then give it some fuel. The engine's revving, nothing's grabbing, nothing's moving. I was like, okay. Then I stopped, put it back in park, put it in 4 high. Tried the same thing, didn't move. I was like, now I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm like, I'm just gonna disconnect the fifth wheel, let it roll down the mountain.
Yeah.
And because the pitch was that steep. Because every time I moved it from park and everything, I wasn't rolling like inches. I was rolling feet.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm trying to keep calm and cool. Jennifer's freaking out, and I'm like, just relax. We got this. She's like, we're in the part of the mountain pass where there is no signal. Granted, we have Starlink, so I could send a message.
Get it out.
I can only imagine what it would have cost to get a record up there. But so being that I'm here now, that we did get out.
You survived.
Yeah. We survived.
Yeah.
And your RV is here. So.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing is actually putting it into 4 low locked, and then I basically just put it in 4 lock, so it's all torque. And you just kind of wiggle the wheels back and forth, and it slowly climbed out onto the pavement. And then Jennifer's like, so when are we going to go out of 4 lock? I'm like, well, we're on the other side.
Yeah.
How much further did you have to go?
I don't blame you.
About 4 miles.
Oh,
so
wow.
we were going at a whopping speed of like maybe 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we had another train behind us of like, I think at that time it was 20 cars.
But you weren't stopping again.
I learned my lesson. And then as soon as we got cleared of the top of the hill, the other side was all construction.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no, I'm not letting anybody pass regardless. So I was good.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't see their anger.
It was a white knuckle.
Oh, man. So my story, I mean, it wasn't necessarily something the GPS did to us. We were in California and we were due at a campground for a month stay, and they called us and they were like, your site's not ready. Come tomorrow. And we're like,
Oh, jeez.
What?
Wow.
I'm like, site's not ready. Come tomorrow. I'm like, well, we have nowhere to go, and it's California and trying to find a place to boondock. But the place that we were going had offered boondocking, So we're like, oh, so we called them back and we're like, can we just come and dry camp tonight and then move into our site tomorrow? And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. Great. I'm like, okay, good. We'll be there. And so we go ahead and head over to the campground. And at this point, I mean, this is early in our travels. This is first year. So I'm in my 1-ton van and our 37-foot travel trailer. Okay. And we pull up to the campground and the gate is closed. And there's a sign that says you cannot enter because of repaving. They were repaving their entire, front, but but that's okay. There's another entrance. Go that way. Okay. But it didn't say don't go with your RV.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And they didn't tell me on the phone. So we're like, oh, well, it says go that way. We're going to go that way. Okay. And so here we go off-road onto this grass, and we're going in between these trees. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't look so bad. And we make the turn. And I'm like, oh, this is good. And it's soft ground. And then I'm just driving along. And then all of a sudden, I have to make a right-hand turn. And there is a massive rock and tree on my right. There are trees on my left, and I have to make a 90-degree turn with like no room to spare. Like I can't go wide. I can't do anything. Oh, and I have a train of cars behind me now, and there's no backing up. So nothing like an audience.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so I just, a little bit at a time, forward, backwards. Phil at one time got out and put himself between the tree and the RV to keep me from scraping the tree.
I don't know if I would have done that, but that's courageous.
I mean, he was moving the branches. They were big branches, but he was trying to move the branches back to give me, a few more inches of space. And it took me probably 30, 45 minutes to make the turn. But I did. And then they all applauded me when I pulled up to the building. They're like, you did what? And I was the hero there for the next week. And they were all talking about how I managed to get my big RV down around there. And they were like, I can't believe you did that. I was like, well, I didn't know we couldn't. So,
wow.
So maybe if they tell you not to come, you should ask more questions as to why you shouldn't be coming.
Absolutely.
But what about you, Matt? What's a fun story for you?
It's not as long and exciting as yours, but we were in West Virginia, and this was like our first year on the road, and we were headed up to a Grand Design Rally coming from North Carolina up to Indiana. And so we went through West Virginia, and we were headed to a campsite just north of the Capitol in West Virginia, and we were using Google. And I usually love Google, but as a side note, when we first started, we were in Arkansas, and every time we went on a route down towards Fort Smith from Fayetteville, it would always like get us off on this town north of Fort Smith, and it would take us like some back road through town and all that stuff for some weird reason. I don't know why. So this time it decided to do that in West Virginia. Like, I don't know if it thinks that like the road's closed or something like that. And we got off in West Virginia and started going down these curvy roads. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, we're getting close to the campsite. Like it showed like 10 miles away. Maybe it's just off on some back roads or something like that. And the roads were curvy, it was mountainous, but it was like a lane and a half. And you couldn't see around the curves until you were hitting the curves. And I was just praying that no car was speeding by.
Right.
And we could see what was funny was,
I think I drove that same road before.
What was funny is you could see the highway still on our left, and they were all going. I was like, "There's no closure," and and so like at one point like I just kind of stopped in the middle of the road, and I like looked at our map, and it was just gonna take me like 5 miles down and take me back on the highway. I was like, "Are you kidding?"
Oh my God.
And there was no closer entrance, and I was like, "There's no place to turn around." So we just went, 15 miles an hour. It took us like 45 minutes to get back on the highway. That was 5 miles away. And so,
you just never know where it's going to direct.
well, and then what was funny was the campsite we went to, like one of the roads to get to the campsite was like a sheer drop off on both sides, single lane, and in the dark we were doing that, so we didn't see the full sheer dropping off until the next day when we were pulling out.
I do think I was on that road. I
Yeah.
had a similar experience.
Yeah.
So let's talk about big cities a little bit, because big cities is a love-hate relationship. Some people, it doesn't bother them at all to drive through them. Other people like me, I hate driving through them. Where do you guys stand with big cities? Like, do they bother you at all? Do you do anything to, try? Like, I personally, if I'm driving through a big city, like Atlanta, Georgia is probably the one I hate the most. We'll leave early. We will camp close to Atlanta,
Yeah.
and we will get up at the crack of dawn and try to leave early so traffic is as minimal as possible. And now that's probably the only city I do that for. But that's one of the things we do, or I try to drive through later to avoid it, but I don't like arriving after dark, so that doesn't work too well. But
Yeah.
what about you guys? Like, does city driving bother you at all, or are you comfortable? Are you white knuckling it through any cities?
I would say I'm at this day and age, I'm comfortable with it, but you have to come in clear headed. It's
Yeah.
because if you're coming in, in a sense where little things bother you, maybe that's not the day to take the city. It's the
Yeah.
day to
Right.
take the
long road.
3 hour drive around the city, just to keep you from having to deal with that. But I've driven through Chicago, LA, DC traffic, all during rush hour. People are like, "Are you nuts?" Yes, yes. Because
During rush hour, yes.
the challenges in situations like that, you have to leave yourself enough space so you have stopping power.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you have that correct amount of space, that leaves enough space for a standard car to fit in, and they're going to take it.
Yep.
Yeah, they totally
And
will.
so, I mean, it's those situations you got to be calm, cool, and collective. Watch your speed. You want to make sure that defensive driving is a
Yeah.
key.
Yeah.
You always want to make sure that you have either an escape plan or it's planned to minimize the dangers of situations like that.
I agree.
So, I mean, it's when I'm going through a city, if it's rush hour traffic, everybody's going about, I don't know, 60 miles an hour, maybe 50 miles an hour. If it's depending on how fast traffic is rolling, I try and stay 10 to 15 miles an hour slower, and always keeping an eye out, looking for those escape areas, because you never know when that might happen. Because we did DC a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago, and coming in through DC, people are zigzagging all over the place. All of a sudden, everybody stopped.
Oh,
And,
no.
I'm like standing on the brake, stay calm, breathe, and we stopped. And the kids kind of look at me because Jennifer wasn't in the car. She was driving with my dad at the time, and the kids are like, not knowing anything that's even going on.
Yeah.
Like, you're ruining my game, Dad. Can you drive smoother?
Of course.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? How do you feel about cities?
I mean, it is what it is. I don't use RV Life if I'm going through a city, because that is not going to happen. It's usually Google, because they give you at least a heads up of, at least like if like one section you're transferring or merging into something and you're going to have another one in like a half a mile, like Google at least gives you that heads up,
That's
a
tip,
good
yeah.
60% of the time, whereas RV Life does not.
Right.
And I do the same thing. I'm like driving like 10, 15 miles below the speed limit. I'm in the right-hand lane. The thing I hate about cities is most of half of the exits are on the left lane. And so, at some point
true.
you've got to merge all the way over and, make everyone mad behind you. And then, but it gets better. Now I do have a story, so highway driving, like I'm fine, but we had a moment where we were driving through Atlanta downtown because I had to drop Tasha and Rosewood off to like an event they were going to, and we couldn't check into our campsite, and so we drove in the middle, and I dropped them off like 5 blocks away from where they needed to go, and it was just a weird thumb sore in the middle of a city that we're driving a big 37-foot camper with a dually through traffic of all these cars whipping around and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, even with that, like defensive driving is the way to go when you're pulling a big rig. You can't slow down fast. And so, but I love those people that just whip in last second so they can get 3 lanes over to make their exit that they didn't plan out. So yeah.
So I find it interesting that you were talking about how you stay in the right lane, which
Yes.
usually is my preferred lane too. I like to be, so I always have an edge, because that's kind of an easy escape route. But I don't know, over my years of traveling, one of the things I've actually started doing is when I'm driving through a city, I drive in the middle lane.
Yeah.
So I do avoid the merging.
Yeah.
And then I can keep more of a steady speed, but I drive 10 to 15 miles slower as well. I know there's a lot of RVers out there who don't do that though.
Oh yeah.
But for me, I mean, I think it's a smart way to go. So be like us and be smart. But let's also talk about let's talk about detours. And, have you ever, experienced a situation where you had your route all planned out and you did come across a detour, and, did you just blindly trust it, or did you stop and look at a map, or can you think of any situations, or am I talking about something you've never experienced?
So we had one, basically what they did was, this was just a couple weeks ago. There was an accident where there was an 18-wheeler that had flipped on the highway. So yeah, we're not going this way anymore. So
Nope.
the detour was basically going over the the access roads that the emergency service vehicles or the police would use. But unfortunately, that was in an area, I think it was in the Carolinas. I don't remember exactly where it was, but those little pathways, they wanted the 18-wheelers and us with RVs and everything else. All the cars were going that way. And I was like, and they put cones out, and the wreck had been there long enough to where they actually had construction crew people or like road closure people out there helping direct traffic. And I was like, if the 18-wheeler can fit and do this, I hope that I can. Because they have a little bit more ground clearance on their trucks and everything else. And I was like watching my trailer as I was pulling it over to the side, and the driver's side just kind of dipped off the shoulder, and I'm like, okay, just keep going, keep the tire side down. And then we snaked back over, and it was like, when we first got into that situation, the traffic literally just stopped. And normally stuff like that, it wears on my nerves, and I'm already anxious enough. So I was just like, you know what? Today's the day that I'm going to get there. I already know I'm not going to get to the campsite in the daylight, so I'm just going to relax.
Yeah.
And Jennifer was in the car, and she's like, are you okay? This isn't like you. I'm like, well, I don't have any control over this. I mean, I might go make a sandwich in the RV right now.
What about you, man?
I've fortunately not come across that at all, so I have no experience with detours.
Well, most of the time I figure, well, if it's a detour that's, immediate or whatever, and they're directing the semis that way, then I figure I'm probably okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that feeling like driving down a country road or a side road that you weren't sure that was designed for big rigs, and then you've never been so happy to see an 18-wheeler coming the opposite direction, to know, okay, if they're coming the opposite direction, I'm okay.
Or are they lost like we're lost?
Yeah, there's that too. What about bridge clearances? Have you ever ended up in a situation, like I've seen some pictures and some videos online of people approaching a bridge that says 13 feet 6 inches. Or 13 feet 6 inches, and their rig is 13 feet 6 inches, and they clear it, but what is your experience been? We spent most of our time out west, so I haven't dealt with bridges too much, but we're going to be doing East Coast this year, and I know that there's more bridges and stuff. So give me some advice on bridges.
So I do know, we haven't been there in quite a few years, but there's 1,000 Trails that's in Tennessee that if you let Google take you to the park, you're not going to fit under the bridge.
Okay.
And it's at the point where you're making a turn and then another turn, so you've already committed and you're not backing out. And when you look at this one bridge, you can tell that you're not the first person who made that turn, because there is a well-beaten path off the pavement into the dirt where everybody can fit. And it comes down to like one of the things you'll run across more on the East Coast and in the Northeast at least, where you have the single lane bridges, and those are crazy. Even in a, a dually truck where you're coming across, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna fit with it's a 9 foot height bridge, but is it wide enough for my
Yeah.
truck to fit?
Yeah. What about you, Matt?
I mean, so there's a Thousand Trails. I think it's like in Pennsylvania, or, right before Pennsylvania, if you're coming from the north west, that they have a similar bridge. If you take the Google route, it wants you to turn there, but luckily they have a sign out there right at the road intersection that says it's like 11 foot 4 or something like that, or 10 foot 10, or so that if you just go down to the next road, then you can fit past it. But I've never come across like a bridge that we've hit or anything that we couldn't pass through. I just noticed, but I mean, our height is way lower than a lot of, because we don't have a fifth wheel. So
Yeah.
yes,
Someday you will.
but there's also but then there's the whole even trucker apps or trucker maps. Like there's one close to the Thousand Shells at Cape Cod, that there's a bridge that's not noted on anything, that is a low bridge. So do your due diligence planning, those that plan and all that, to just find those things. But sometimes that, you just gotta just pay attention to the road, pay attention to the signs.
I think I'll be doing a lot of Google Street View
Mm-hmm.
to check signs and stuff beforehand. But even then, the signs can be wrong too.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
And so you got to definitely do some research and figure out what's safe. But all of that to say, I also want to say, like, if you do ever end up in a situation, I think these guys will agree, and you're uncomfortable, stop.
Yep.
Pull over, let people go around, or whatever. I mean, even if you're blocking traffic, whatever, stop. Because safety is important, comfort's important. And, you want to make sure you don't put yourself in a situation that you can't get out of or damages your rig or your truck or whatever else. People can always go around. Have you ever, well, you told one story about how you stopped in the road. Have you had any other instances or stories?
I got into couple of missed turns where trying to find the entrance to an RV park, and we drove by it because Google Maps, or the map app that we had at the time, was like, here it is, and I'm looking and looking and I don't see it. And my kids were like, that was it. I'm like, what was it? I didn't see it. So I would drive past it, and we ended up having to, and it was farm country, so it was a very narrow road. There's no shoulder. Basically it's 2 lanes, and then just grass and grass, and then crops. And then we come across, and I'm like, looking at the we stopped, put the hazards on, because I'm like, I'm not going to go anywhere until I can figure out what's going on. There was a street maybe a quarter mile down the road, basically like a T intersection, not a 4-way, and we ended up having to pull down that street, and then very gingerly and K-turning a 42-foot trailer with the truck on it to get it to fit there. And I think that probably took us about 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I was just like, strategically and, methodically going through it. I'm like, what would have been a better option? There wasn't one, because there was nothing but those roads stopped being paved and turned into dirt farm roads.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have been stuck on roads like that, because, you have the option to turn those off in your apps. But I'm like, if this is the only way to get to them, then that's the way we'll go. But I mean, it's knowing if you get into a situation like that, to stop, collect your thoughts, double check everything, make sure you have the right turn radius, the right clearance, make sure that you don't have anything if you have a short bed truck, or if you have what the clearance between your hitch and your sides of your bed, if you have to do a negative degree turn,
Yeah.
anything like that. Those are all key important things, especially with travel trailers too. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine getting. I mean, I never got stuck with mine, but I've been in tight situations where I had to jackknife when I used to have a travel trailer.
Yeah.
So a good point about travel. I mean, this is not travel planning, but traveling, because we're hitting tight turns sometimes that we don't expect. And I'm going to say this recommendation, but I've never figured mine out yet. But is like when you're learning how to drive your RV, they talk about your tail swing.
Yeah.
Because you're behind your axles of your rig, it swings out further. And so knowing if you're in a tight turn, if you have the extra people in your truck that can go outside and check your stuff while you're turning into a campsite or whatever, then you won't hug a tree, which you guys have already heard about.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
you got, that's another thing about planning, is also planning if you hit those tight situations. Does everyone understand like what you can and cannot do that's in your party, or
Yeah.
or even if you ask for help from someone that's in the campground, just knowing that info. So
But one of the first things I did when we got our fifth wheel is I found an empty parking lot, and I went practiced turning and backing up and, judging, what my tail swing now was because it was an all new to me RV
Oh, yeah.
and setup and everything. And definitely, I can't recommend that enough. If you're new to the RV world or whatever, or you bought, you're going from a travel trailer to a motorhome or to a fifth wheel, go out and practice a little bit and learn that a little bit, because it is different and it is good to know. And it's good to get people out to watch and stuff, for sure.
One of the things I have to deal with is because of the way that my suspension is built. My suspension actually is the axles are on the leaf springs, so I don't have as much clearance as most people do.
Oh,
So I have skids in the back. So when I'm going in and out of different transitions between the road
like a
to
gas station.
a gas
Yeah.
station or something like that, I've got, or even I'm making turns. If I'm going into an RV park or I'm backing into an RV site, I've got to watch which my pitch is because the rear of my trailer is maybe a foot and a half off the ground. And people are like, that's low. Yes, yes, it is. And
Yes.
you'll feel that when those my skid plates hit because they're like the shape of a spike, so like diamonds.
Yeah.
So they like to plow into the ground to keep the back end lifted up. But once it hits, you can hear the squealing of the metal grinding on the asphalt. And as soon as you hear that, it's not just that noise, but the whole trailer just kind of goes, "Hey!" It lurches, and you're like, "Well, I just hit something." And if you hear the squealing, you didn't hit anything. It's just keeping it from bottoming and ripping
Bottoming
off the
out.
tail of the camper off.
Yeah.
And the tail swing can, any in those situations, it can not only rip the bottom of your RV off, it can rip the sidewalls off. So I'm if you don't have skid plates, depending on how high your rear end is, I recommend getting them.
Oh, yeah. We should have had those on our travel trailer and our motorhome. I can't tell you how many times I bottomed out. It happens. But so what are some things that people should know? Like, let's go over the list of things that people should know before you drive your RV down the road, before you plan a trip. You should know the height of your RV. And that's from the top of your air conditioner all the way to the ground.
Yep.
In the hitched up position.
yes, correct.
Because
Yep.
that matters. What is something else that you should know?
That was going to be my answer. So now I got to think about it.
Well, as far as one of the other things is knowing what your clearance is between the top of the truck bed and the bottom of the hitch area.
Yeah.
Because the way my RV is connected currently, I do have a little bit of clearance in my current fifth wheel, which is about 6 or 7 inches there. But the actual, if I was to drop it to where it was level, I would have probably maybe 4 inches, which is a little too dicey depending on what the pitch is of the road you're coming in or going down as you're going up and down. So keeping that in mind. And then understanding if you have to do a turn or if you have to do a negative degree turn, what type of hitch you have, what your clearance is, if you have a slide hitch or not, if you have a short bed, knowing how close your cap can be to your rear window, because if you have a slide hitch, you're going to be danger close. So it's one of those things where having the extra set of eyes is very helpful. And then if you're backing into campsites, it's always having those, having as many cameras as you're capable of. Communications is key.
Yep.
I'm still very old school with big, large hand signals doing this. Tank movements. Neutral steer this way, neutral steer that way. I wish we could do that, but we can't. And I try and tell my kids, hey, especially in low light, if you come down with a clear, concise plan of how to maneuver so they're safe, the RV is safe, nothing gets damaged, and there's a clear plan.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I would tell people as far as route planning, things to always have on hand is making sure you're checking your spare tire.
Yes.
Route planning, make sure you know where the if needed, if you're going off out in the Midwest or even further west into the desert regions, making sure you have spare parts if you need them. If you're pulling a trailer, make sure you have an extra set of bearings.
Yep.
Stuff like that is critical. And then depending on the season of travel, I like to always make sure that I have a little rolled up carpet like a doormat. People are like, what for? I said, do you like laying on 150-degree asphalt?
Right.
I don't.
No, you got to have all those things.
I got a cheap yoga mat for that.
That works too.
That works too. The other thing I would say is, especially with route planning, is what kind of safety tools and features do you bring with you? Are you trusting the jack from your vehicle? Do you have a floor jack? Is it big enough to lift your if you have a flat on your truck, or on your tow vehicle or on your trailer? Do you have the capabilities of fixing that? Who is your what other types of safety equipment do you have? Do you wear a reflective vest?
Yes. Do you have cones to put out?
Absolutely. I mean, how close? I mean, and I've broken down where I've had bearings go out on the side of Interstate 10, where I was literally the side of the fifth wheel was right on the line, and we were there for 9 hours. So we were there from daylight to dark when I was putting everything back together. At the time, my older boys were like, "Love, you mean it, Dad? I'm not holding the light pole." So I was literally laying underneath the camper, working on putting the bearings back together to get the wheel back on, and then running in and out to get away from the trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the vest and the lights and little triangles, it's only please don't hit me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And with that, like too, like there are things that happen, and so what is something, I mean, one thing I try to do, like it's the 3-3-3 rule, 2-2-2, 4-4. I mean, however you want to put it. But I like to try to arrive in daylight. I try not to travel more than 300 miles if I can help it. Things like that. What are some things that you do? Like do you do long travel days, Matt? Do you do shorter travel days? What are some rules you kind of stick to?
Well, when we first got on the road, we did some long travel days because we were just trying to make goals, and we were also like had to be back at certain places at certain times, so we wanted to make the most of what we could. But now we started going to this last year and a half, we've gone to less travel days or less longer travel days. You still have one of those every once in a while, and then also we travel on the weekends and usually on Sundays, and we find that, I mean, it's a kind of a two-edged thing. Is going touristy stuff is usually better on the Saturday and the Sunday, but then also there seems to be, for us, less people on the road on a Sunday than there are on a Saturday, and so we try to plan to,
excuse me,
day of the week that's less, and then also time of day, and then but yeah, we try to limit our long days to maybe like 4 or 5 hours or something like that, and then get at least 1 or 2 stops in before we get to our campsite, and then be there before day. I mean, that's also like a courtesy thing, is before it gets dark, you're not trying to find your spot at 11 o'clock at night.
While your neighbors are trying to sleep.
Exactly, and you're shining your brights down.
What about you, Frank? What are some rules you try to follow?
So we try to limit our drive time between 6 to 8 hours at our longest days, and that's with multiple stops in between.
So are you leaving at like 6 a.m.?
No. I wish. These are more during the summertime travel days, or if it's a travel day that we're going to be going a long distance, we try and we'll have a destination at the end of the travels, which might be a couple day travel window. Like say if we're going from, where were we going? For upstate New York, we stopped in Pennsylvania. From Pennsylvania, we were then going to Myrtle Beach, and we're like, okay, we had 600 miles. We're not doing that in a day.
Yeah.
I could probably do it. But at the other end, I'm going to be fried and just not be able to set anything up.
Yeah.
So one of the things we'll do is, if we're still doing by the seat of our pants, we'll look up to see where in the travel arrangements all the different parks are. If it's either through different organizations, whether it be like Passport America, the KOAs, RV overnights, stuff like that, that can fit into that situation. Because one of the things we like to do, if we're not stopping for an extended period of time, we'll try and stop somewhere where there's a pull through or where there's a site big enough to where I don't have to disconnect.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're at like 60 feet fully connected, somewhere around there.
Yep.
So it's critical. So when I talk to different campgrounds, I'm like, do you have pull throughs? They're like, yeah, how big are they? Oh, they're 35 feet. That's for a car. And I've been to campgrounds that have 120-foot pull throughs. I'm like, what are you landing planes?
Well, there are some pretty big setups. You know?
There are.
I've seen some 45-foot rigs towing a 20-foot trailer, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It exists. So,
Well, one of the things we like to do, or we haven't used a lot of, is some of the Loves or some of the truck stops have like the RV stuff now. And so we came into a situation coming down here recently that I could go to the campsite that we were scheduled to go to, but it was going to be dark.
Yep.
Or I could just go turn around, go back 5 miles and go to the Loves and just park there. I'm just right on the highway, and it was just convenient. They're just about level. You know, you might have a little bit.
At least you're on a hard pack.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And it's well lit, so I'm not too scared of someone breaking in.
Yeah.
And then I'm not dealing with neighbors and trying to back into a site. You know, we were only there for a night. The campsite we were going to, we were only going to be there for a night. And so just planning that as well as being flexible.
Yes. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
You know, don't be afraid to change your plans if tires go flat, if bearings fall out, you know, and you need to cut your trip short, find someplace else to stay, because sometimes it's just for your own mental health, if nothing else, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
So, well, thanks for joining us today. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow us, join our Facebook group, the Learn to RV, the podcast Campfire Crew, and we'll see you next week.
Love what you're hearing? Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're at it, leave us a review.